So briefly before I go into the Robocop Prime Directives series, um, I wanted to sort of bring up how this film series is still relevant. This whole franchise is still relevant because uh, OCP in the last Robocop film series was dissolved, and in the film series Delta City was never to be built. But the thing is, uh, in the Prime Directives series, it is, and OCP is still around. Um, so it kind of plays as an alternate reality kind of thing. Of course, corporations sometimes come back when they have new investors or what have you. But the basic point is this: with the recent Citizens United ruling and um, now the big push to, for instance, in Milwaukee recently, Scott Walker, who got just voted governor of Minnesota, um, uh, suggested replacing police officers for security duty with non-union, uh, private security, and as a result, it ended up being more expensive for the city, and all these cities and states all around are going bankrupt, and there's this push for private industry to move in, and since private industry is now considered citizens and people with rights and everything, uh, it could entirely be possible for a corporation under this understanding to own property and build a city from it, um, in instead of having it, actually democratically run by a system of constitutional government. It could be owned and operated um, by corporations, by CEOs and board members. And yeah, scary thought, right? So anyway, Uh, the Prime Directive series is notable because it doesn't have the actor who played RoboCop in this series, Paige Fletcher, um, actually did not want hadn't seen the RoboCop series, and he didn't really want to emulate Peter Weller's walk, so he kind of developed his own that was more representative of what the character was going through, which is nice because it's a very distinctive RoboCop, very different from um, how we've seen him in previous incarnations, from the movies to the television series. Um, so what's interesting, I think, most about this series is that you really have an interesting play of good and evil. Um, Many of the characters are somewhat ambivalent. They kind of introduce a new heroic character, um, in the form of a uh, a woman who's kind of a cyberpunk, uh, thief of information and such. And so it ends up actually becoming uh, a bit more about her and her compatriots. And I remember back when I watched the first movie of the series, uh, I was wondering if I was watching the right film because it just didn't seem to be about that. However, it was very cyberpunk compared to maybe um, RoboCop 3 or the television series. Um, Mind you, each episode of the television series is about 90 minutes and really not okay for kids, unlike the television series that was produced back in the 90s. Each of the titles of the episodes, Dark Justice, Meltdown, Resurrection, and Crash and Burn, have nothing to do with what really goes on in the storylines. So you really won't want to walk in thinking that one's going to be about the other. However, they do deal with um, Delta City being this, supposed wonderful place, um, and really what's exciting about it is that uh, one gang that tries to kind of take over a part of Delta City is actually a group of suicide bombers. Now, obviously, this is very touchy as a subject um, in a post 9/11 world. But suicide bombings were also very common before that, and it really shows an awareness on the part of the writers. Um, Furthermore, uh, we see a wonderful mirroring in uh, an old partner of Murphy's being turned into a second Robocop. Now, that's a bit of a spoiler, but trust me, uh, you'll want to see how it turns out in the end. Uh, some points, some scenes kind of seem unnecessary, you know, but uh, they really try and resolve all storylines so that you don't have a what if at the end. It tries to kind of wrap it all up. Um, and it's really not too bad. Um, they don't really have any of the characters from the other shows. And it's kind of cool because it all takes place 10 years after the first movie. So they show that Robocop is kind of battered and beaten around and a bit the worse for wear. They aren't making parts for him anymore, so uh, he can't really keep going. He's basically the old Nash Rambler that's just you know been patched up so many times, or a bit, if you will, like the Cuban cars where they've just managed to keep them going uh, by patching them up over and over and over and forging new parts. So uh, yeah, unfortunately, RoboCop is kind of beaten and battered, but about partway through the series, he kind of fixes himself with some old parts that he finds in old Detroit, which is a shanty town where people are kind of living in the ruins, and it's kind of run by gangs and such. Uh, so it's really kind of cool the comparison that they show between the different lifestyles and the way that the corporation kind of tries to manipulate the people. It is not a democracy. It is not an honest form of government or leadership. Uh, and they also, are trying to have a computer take over all functions of the city so that the cost can be lowered. That's one of the big plot devices. So there are plot devices introduced in the first film that you see working their way through all four uh, episodes of the miniseries. Um, as it goes, it's really not too bad. You have the overarching story. It fits together, I think, a lot more neatly than Robocop, the television series, which was shown in syndication, but sometimes they would show so many reruns that you would, tune out and then come back and wonder, okay, what the heck happened? Which unfortunately was a bit of a problem with the syndicated television series for a long time. Um, so all of these are available to watch right now on Netflix. Uh, and I honestly think that the 2000-2001 miniseries is a pretty good continuance of the RoboCop series. As I said, it's very cyberpunk. It has that dark edge to it. It is not for kids, much like the first three films. Uh, so you will want to watch it with adults. And I just generally think that it holds up better than uh, some of the other stuff we tend to see in terms of revamping or making sequels and whatnot. So uh, you know, it's just kind of cool that this particular series is still remaining fairly fresh. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching this episode, and I hope you'll subscribe and tune in again for another episode of Film Recommendations. Bye bye.